Um, Now, who should conduct the investigation? Can you do it internally, or do you have to hire an outside investigator? Now, there is no law, no legal requirement on this. And I think it depends on the severity of the complaint, on whether you need to bring in an outside investigator. Also it depends on who's involved in the situation. Now, if it involves like the head of the company, the CEO, the president, the supervisor, something like that, it probably makes sense to bring in an outside investigator, because then it shows the company's got somebody outside the company that's running the investigation, and it's not going to be influenced. Now, internal investigations occur quite a bit, and especially if you've got a well-educated and seasoned HR professional or other supervisor that can run these internal investigations. The big benefit with internal, obviously, is that there's going to be more understanding of the parties. They understand the workplace. They understand the prior histories of the people involved, things like that. Easier to assess the credibility of the employees. And obviously, it's going to save money. Now, if you bring an outside investigator, it's probably going to be harder to attack that investigator of being biased. But they're going to step into the situation cold. So there is some issues with that when you bring in an outside investigator as well. But so it's something that I think the first issue that the company needs to address to see how they're going to be handling it. Now, issue 2, who should conduct the investigation? I spoke about this briefly before, about non-attorney or an attorney. Now, the DFEH, and it's in the handout that I have, it says that for an outside investigator to come into the company to do an investigation, it has to be a licensed private investigator or an attorney. And I've read the code section that the DFEH cites to support that. I don't see that in that code section where that requirement is. And the DFEH is saying this, so I think employers need to pay attention to it. But I think there could be a potential argument that it doesn't have to be a private investigator or an attorney that you bring in from outside of the company to do the investigation. Now, there's no question internally, you can have whoever internal to the company conduct an investigation, whether it be the president, a director of HR, whether it's just a supervisor. But again, somebody that's trained on this knows how to do the investigation, because if it goes to litigation, their credibility or their knowledge and how they conducted the investigation is going to be under attack, and going to be under very close scrutiny. So they should have some experience on conducting these investigations when you have somebody internally do those. Now, third, you need to consider, does law enforcement need to be involved? Possibly, if there's some violent threats, drugs, theft, fraud, you may have to contact law enforcement. So you need to think about that as well, and assess that before you're doing the investigation. And as I mentioned, the investigator qualifications, I generally like somebody that's got experience doing these. It's hard to step in, especially for a serious allegation. Have somebody that's very well qualified, done this before, no conflict of interest. And now, again, the investigator internally doesn't have to have any certain credentials, but it's just generally how well are they going to be able to stand up to scrutiny from opposing counsel if it goes to litigation, on how well they did that investigation, what's their background on investigations.